May be very familiar with it. Thank you. Good morning. Again. Good morning. I'll take a few minutes to introduce the Urban Rehab Program to you. Cam Perkins from our home office up in New Britain is very heavily involved in the reviewing of the estimates as they come in and the disbursement of the funds afterwards. So I will also be introducing her to let her walk you through what happens on these transactions. First of all, the Urban Rehab Program is a program that is geared towards 6 specific cities in the state of Connecticut. Of course, here in Eastern Connecticut, we're focused pretty heavily on the city of New London and portions of the town of Willimantic. In the back of your packet, there is what's called the target area map. These are the areas of Willimantic that are eligible. My emphasis this morning, though, will be pretty heavily on New London, but anything that I'm saying about New London would also be appropriate for this section of Willimantic. The Urban Rehab Program came out back in 2002. It was on the streets for about a year and a half. At that time, we ended up working with probably 20 to 25 different clients who purchased a home in New London, anywhere from a 1 to 4 family house, and put between $20,000 and $25,000 into rehabbing the house. The program is set up to provide funds for renovations to the house. It's definitely not a program geared towards a gut rehab. It's more improving the existing house, energy efficiency, making it a healthier place to live, a safer place to live. The funds came back in 2006, some fines being paid to the state of Connecticut, and the fines that were set aside at that point were set aside strictly for the use of the Urban Rehab Program. So all of these monies that are being dispersed under the Urban Rehab Program are actually not tax dollars. They are fines being paid by one very, very aggressive lender that is no longer in the marketplace. So it's a, sort of a nice way to see the funds being used here. To start off with the packet, the wanted poster. The wanted people here are people who are full-time employees in the city of New London. They also 20 or the 25,000 does not have to be paid back. There's no interest being charged on it. It's strictly a grant for the improvements to the house. CHFA's interest rate, current interest rate for the standard program is at 4.5% with 1 point. The Urban Rehab Program is offered at 4.25% with 1.5 points. The 4.25% is a 30-year fixed rate, fixed payment mortgage, no bells or whistles. You pick up the extra $20,000 to do the rehab work on the house. The standard mortgage is still a standard 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The third sheet down in the packet today is a recap that we did. Just has to be referred to it. It's just headed up CHFA Urban Rehab Program. This will give you the basics in a nutshell. Also, Gary Kulik is here with me this morning. Gary's the fellow that's the head of our marketing department at McCue, and he put together another handout that expands out on this a little bit further. Full color, nicer pictures than my standard here. As we mentioned, the program is available for purchase of a 1 to 4 family house. House needs to be in the city of New London. The maximum sales price is $405,400. For those of you that are familiar with the city, $405,000 is going to be purchased, allowing you to purchase almost every house in the city. It's pretty wide open. No income limits. There are no income limits with this program unless you are using the down payment assistance program. So you could have 2 people, let's say they're Pfizer research scientists working at the Pfizer facility in New London, each of them making $150,000 a year. They could take advantage of this program. The only time that the income limits kick in is if people are using the down payment assistance program. Family size for those income limits is defined on the number of people moving into the house, not the number of people on the mortgage application or on the deed. It's how many people are moving in. Historically, with this program, you either needed to be a state employee working at a state office in New London, you needed to be a municipal employee working for the city of New London, or you needed to have the approval of your private sector employer to make a financial contribution. As of the 1st of this year, CHFA took off the requirement of having a financial contribution. So there were some employers in New London that said they'd like to take part in this, but they really couldn't afford to be shelling out $500 or $1,000 or $2,500 for their borrowers to take advantage of this. The guideline, again, from CHFA is now there is no contribution that has to come from the employer. Interestingly enough, Lawrence Memorial Hospital is still willing to come to the table with $2,500 to help their buyers, to help their employees. So it's worth checking with each employer, see if they're willing to make a contribution, but they are no longer required to as they used to be. Talked about the money being forgiven at the 20% per year. Rate is set a 1/4% lower than the standard CHFA rate. The down payment assistance program, when you're using down payment assistance for down payment and closing, typically it's set at the same rate as CHFA. With the tie-in with urban rehab, the down payment assistance program is offered at 3%, 30-year fixed. There's homeownership counseling required. We work with an agency in New Britain called Neighborhood Housing Services. They will speak to the clients by phone. The counselor there will walk them through what's involved. We certainly encourage people, of course it's a requirement, but we encourage people to have a home inspection done. The homeownership counselor will review the home inspection with the client, and they will generate a list of work that has to be done in the house. In some instances, we've seen the work is minimal, as please replace the outlet cover in the back bedroom, please replace the broken light fixture in the basement. In other cases, we've seen the furnace is in pieces on the floor, you need a new heating system, plumbing's all torn out of the house, you need plumbing. So it runs the gamut, from very minimal work that's required to some very major work that's required. But let's say that the work is minimal, you're only using maybe $2,000 out of 20 for the required improvements. The other $18,000 on the one family, the other $23,000 on the multifamilies is available for energy efficiency, health and safety improvements that can be made to the house. In the packet again this morning, there's a flyer that talks about improvements, allowable improvements. Probably the best way to look at that is that there are some things that they will not do with this money. Almost everything else is acceptable. The items that CHFA doesn't want to be involved in would be luxury improvements, including area rugs, fencing, garages, landscaping work, pools, hot tubs, granite or marble work, and other work that would be viewed as cosmetic enhancements. So if you're looking at insulation, roofing, windows, if you're looking into electric, new plumbing, new heating, those are perfectly acceptable improvements to use this money for. But if you're trying to add the deck on the back of the house with a nice hot tub, have a little party out there this summer, this is not the program for that. These loans, again, of course, they're going through CHFA. They are insured, if you're putting less than 20% down, they are insured by private mortgage insurance companies. So this is not a program that's involving FHA or VA or personal rural development. It's CHFA with private mortgage insurance. Interestingly enough, when we're doing the calculation of the loan to value, we take the sales price, typically look for 5% down on the sales price, but then we go back to the sales price and add the $20,000 to it to come up with an acquisition cost. When we're looking at the mortgage amount compared to that acquisition cost, you're typically in a situation where somebody's not being charged PMI based on 5% down, they're being charged PMI based on, say, 15 to 18% down, because the $20,000 is able to be used as part of the equity or the down payment in the property. I will be happy to go through figures with you. I can send you an email, send me a quick scenario of what you're thinking about doing. It's a little confusing, a little bit hard to present that. There's some quick numbers that we have to do. But if somebody's in a position where they're putting 20% down, these loans do not have to be insured. Traditionally, the CHFA loans have to have insurance. These do not if you have the 20% equity. Timeframes. I'm looking right at D'Angelo. The fastest that we've ever seen one of these go through was with a fellow who worked for a contracting company in New London. He came into my office, said he was interested in doing this. He had signed the contract the day before. He was in touch with Neighborhood Housing Services that morning. They did the homeownership counseling, had a home inspection done. He ran out, got the contracts, came back, sent the contracts off to the estimates off to the appraiser. Appraiser did their work. The loan was approved and closed in 18 calendar days. He is my poster child for this program.